So I guess we could do that. Good. So there was a scene from the Celestine Prophecy that really stood out in my mind when preparing this talk. It was these people in fifth dimensional reality who vibrated at that fifth dimensional frequency, and there were people in third dimensional reality who were right around there in the same area, but they couldn't see these people in fifth dimensional reality because they vibrated a different frequency. And then one of the people in the fifth dimensional reality fell, and the other person in the fifth dimensional reality wanted to help that person, but it was really challenging because it's really tempting to go down into that frequency by buying into all those challenges that face third dimensional reality. So as long as we vibrate at fifth dimensional reality, we're safe, we're fine, and all these challenges that are going on all around us won't affect us the same way as if we vibrate at the third dimensional reality when where there's always we're governed by fear and worry, resistance, all these third dimensional reality kind of emotions. So during these times, it's like, so I'm sorry, did you have any question?
Yeah, I'm not familiar of what really fifth dimensional versus third dimensional means.
Okay. Yeah, so third dimensional reality is pretty much, worry, fear, lack, limitation, and it creates this feeling of anxiety, depression, all these ups and downs, all these emotional roller coaster kind of emotions that third dimensional reality people have, that most people in the world have. And fifth dimensional reality is love, acceptance, going with the flow, having harmony with other people, cooperation, unconditional love, forgiveness, and being in a state of harmony with whatever happens.
Okay.
Is that?
Stop chilling.
So yeah, if we stay in that third dimensional reality kind of mind frame of fear, resistance, anger, getting in, emotionally attached to the news, it's really not conducive to what we want to experience of being a harmonious state of peace. Whoops, let me.
Mitch, I think Barbara had a question too.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I did. I still consider myself a newbie. I'm sorry. But when you speak of dimensional realities, I don't really understand what that means.
Yeah. So
I understand that there are different dimensional realities. Is there someplace I can go?
Someplace you could go into another dimensional reality. Is that what your question is?
No, to research what that means and what the dimensional realities are.
You could Google it, I'm sure. I just got it from talks I've had over the years, and but it's a lot of people believe there are parallel realities, and we vibrate a certain frequency to attract that reality to us. Everything is happening here and now, but they're happening at different vibrational frequencies. So as we vibrated that at one frequency, we know we're going to attract that frequency. If we vibrate a different frequency, we'll attract that other frequency, that other dimensional reality to us. So yeah, it's that's as much as I'd like to get into right now. But does that make any sense at all, where you can sort of follow along? So it's all about getting to the highest vibrational frequency.
I follow the flow of what you just said.
So let's not get too bogged down with the terminology, and let's just understand that being at a love frequency and forgiveness and acceptance will attract different things to us. And it's a matter of knowing the law of attraction, where we attract what we're the vibration of, and if we did you have a question?
Just a thumbs up.
Okay, good. So that sort of makes sense. Does that make sense about, just understanding it from that perspective? Yeah, okay, good. So, so the way to understand this, my way to understand this is do this chart. So I don't know if you could see this. Could you see that? Could you all see that?
Yes, it may help if you
Yes.
like point out and then say exactly what the words are just for clarity, but yes.
Okay,
Now
there's
what-
skills over
skills?
here
Right.
and their challenges over here. This is the y-axis, this is the x-axis. And the zone is over here. And fifth dimensional reality is over here in the top right. And third dimensional reality is here. So when there aren't a lot of when we don't have a lot of skills and we don't have a lot of challenges, we're down here, somewhere around here. And we don't have a lot of challenges, then we have a lot of skills, then we're up here. So this is like boredom over here. So that shows you where people with boredom are. But when things are easy, it's easier to stay on this line, this zone. So we'll talk a lot more about the zone, this place of where everything happens automatically, naturally. It's and the more we stay on that, and the more the challenges we have. So we're developing all these skills by everything we're learning in Unity, all these spiritual teachings, and we could, if we have all these skills but aren't challenged, then we're going to be over here where we're peaceful. This is a place of peace. But all these challenges are happening for a reason, and they're happening to get us up to this fifth dimensional reality where we use all our skills and we use all our challenges to maximize the blast off, the lift off that we could take to get from the third dimensional reality to the fifth dimensional reality. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's all about staying on this line. And if things are pretty easy, then it's easier to stay on the line. But things are getting more and more hectic, and it's going to be more and more challenging to stay on this line. So we might as well take advantage of things while we're here and being comfortable with being in the zone down here, because as things get more hectic, more chaotic, these challenges going up. So it's going to be harder. We have to use more and more of our skills in order to stay on that line. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So all these challenges we could look at as horrible things, but it's actually helping propel us from third dimensional reality to fifth dimensional reality once we use all our skills to help us stay peaceful. So when we're anxious, so when we have a lot of challenges, but we don't use our skills, we're over here in a place of anxiety. We have all these challenges, but don't use our skills, or have skills, but we don't use them. This is anxiety, and anxiety is actually could be looked at. Everything has double duty. So everything could be looked at as a horrible thing. Oh my God, everything's horrible. I'm gonna, have a heart attack. I need to get to the doctor for some Valium. It's like, we could resist that anxiety. Or we could see that we're not using our skills and use his teacher to show us, to knock us, tap us on the shoulder, telling us we're not using our skills to meet these challenges. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Not really?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so. I think, just the word skills seems very broad to me. So it's like, if we have ideas that we can think of as we're discussing it on what kind of skills is it that right now it's like, well, I don't know if I have the skill or not because it's a broad term. Like, what skills do I need to meet the challenges to stay in the zone?
Yeah, we're going to get into that later.
Yeah.
My book, Holiest Medicine, talks a lot about those skills as well. But we'll get into some of those skills over the next hour or so, hour and a half.
Mitch, I have a question about your zone thing. You said that boredom was somewhere middle challenge, low end skill, and peace was high skill and low end challenge.
Now, boredom is high skills, low challenge.
High skills, low challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
And then peace is what? The same thing?
Peace is in the zone. It's
it's in the zone. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I thought you said that boredom was high challenge, low skill.
Yeah, no. And relaxation is here with it, hardly any challenges but high skills. So some people could be happy there, and there's nothing wrong with anything. It's just where you want to be at a certain time. It's up to you.
Right.
I want to use all these things around us to, and if boredom were to set in, I would challenge myself. I would create my own challenges to use my skills that we'll talk about later, what the skills are, to stay in that zone, to propel myself from third dimensional reality to the fifth dimensional reality. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So it really hit me a while ago when I was attending a lot of workshops and went to a lot of conferences and did reading and had all kinds of epiphanies and it was sort of strange. After a while, I realized what was happening, but for a while it was like it was bopping me over the head that right after I went to all these workshops, I would get challenged in a big way. Either things would happen that were horrible in my practice, or bad relationship issues, and major challenges, to the point where I was afraid of going to workshops or having epiphanies or having any ahas. And then it hit me. I put it all together and realized that there's a pattern, there's a rhyme and a reason to why everything's happening this way. And I realized that I was developing all these skills, but I didn't have the challenges in my life to put these skills in order to embody those skills. So the world is showing me lessons to help me to show me that how to use these skills in a positive way to stay in the zone as much as possible. So if we see all these challenges as horrible, things from God, then we take it one way. And that's how I took it for many years, until I realized that, everything that challenges me is my teacher. And if I use it in a positive way, by seeing it as my teacher and showing me how to use my challenges in the world, and use my skills as much as possible, then I make the most out of it. And so does that make sense? Good. So for many years, we thought of the zone as like this new age kind of thing, this fifth dimensional reality, this new age kind of concept that, you just talk about at a party over a bowl of tofu, and it just seemed like out there kind of concept. But it's becoming more and more apparent that we have to, this is getting pretty real now. And just like those people in the Celestine Prophecy, where, if they were in a third dimensional reality, it would have been pretty dangerous for them. So it's not optional anymore. It's becoming more and more necessary. And the world is challenging us in order to propel us from that third dimensional reality into this fifth dimensional reality. So all these things that are happening around us are gifts, even though they may not look like gifts to some people. And sometimes it takes me a while to sometimes see it as a gift as well. But it's taken me a lot less time than it did in the past. So once we see it as gifts, it changes our vibration. And when we change our vibration, we change what we attract. So it's so, vibration is the key to the whole thing. Once we see everything as an opportunity to change our vibration, then our world changes. So it's vitally important during these times to really get that. Does that make sense about how important that is during these challenging times?
Yeah, but if you can't change some of the stuff that's going on around you, instead of accepting it, like the political situation, wouldn't it be better sometimes to avoid it or ignore it to get to the fifth dimension?
Everybody has their own way of getting to the fifth dimension, and some people need to ignore it because it's not their path. Everybody has their own path to get to the fifth dimension. Some people use all the challenges, and that's what I do, is use all these challenges in order to make peace with those challenges and use it an opportunity to use my skills in order to stay in that zone. But some people may need to ignore it because they may not have the skills to use to stay in the zone and stay in that place of peace. So, there's no right answer for everybody. Everybody has their own path to getting to the fifth dimension. Some people want to go faster. I'd rather go faster and embrace all these challenges and read the news and stay on top of all these things that were bopping me over the head a while ago, all these things that, push my buttons, raise my blood pressure. I'd rather, embrace them and make peace with them and help me even propel me. It's like a keto. We use the person's energy in a positive way. This is the way I look at challenges, is to use it in a positive way. Everything is energy, and it's just a matter of changing our internal dialogue about that energy from a place of fear to a place of excitement. Excitement has very high vibration. Fear has very low vibration. If we go into a place of fear, we're going to attract a fearful world. If we go into a place of excitement, that'll be what we attract. And that's a very high vibrational kind of reality that we attract. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Sorta.
Go ahead. So ask again, ask away.
Well, I don't want to bring up politics, but it's not just politics, but external forces that impinge on you and, for lack of a better word, blocks what you're able to do in a positive vein. And I understand what you're saying about accepting it as a challenge and getting energized by it, but I guess I'm just not there. I mean, I'm not going to use political, but when our ex-president was here, I couldn't get into any kind of positive spin. So I hear what you're saying. It's just that I can't see it resonate with me.
I know exactly how you feel, and I actually, that's what propelled me to start writing my book. I started with Bush, and it didn't end with Bush. I had a lot of challenges with all the politicians over the years as well, and that's one of the reasons I admitted after like 7 years that I didn't even realize it myself until like 7 years later, after moving to New Zealand. I realized that was one of the reasons I moved away, to get away from all the things that I didn't agree with. But after writing my book, that was actually the reason, one of the main reasons I came back, was to face everything I was running away from, and to make peace with it, and to be in equanimity with it, and to not resist it, not accept it, just be at peace, and seeing presidents or politicians as teachers of unconditional love. And I have a chapter in my book about unconditional. It's entitled "Unconditional Love Beats Adolf Hitler." And it's about how to, because Jesus and Buddha and Mother Teresa, just talked about love, and that's helpful to talk about. It's just words, though. These people who push our buttons are teaching us unconditional love, because once we could love them, we could love anybody. So I think they're the greatest teachers. And when we see them as teachers, then we don't have to agree with them. And sometimes we could totally, it's okay to be have very strong opinions about their actions, and that's fine. But the first step is to be equanimous with it, to have no cravings, no aversions, be at peace with everything that they're doing, and only then could we come to a place of power to do something about it from this empowered place, this zone that's aligned with the power of God, pretty much. We'll talk about how that works later. But the first thing, well, remind me, because I'll, if you don't does that make sense? But we'll go into more detail later. But does that make sense so far?
Mitch, what I think I just heard you say was, don't resist, don't accept, just be at peace with whatever it is.
Yeah. Actually, it, it's don't accept, it's actually embrace. It goes beyond acceptance. It's embracing everything, and that's mind-boggling, I know. But it's seeing that that the world is giving us what we need to know in order to get into the fifth dimension. And when we, we're all interconnected, we're all one. And when we embrace our interconnectedness with the shadow parts of ourselves that we're projecting onto other people, then we become whole again.
Okay.
So yeah, it goes beyond acceptance, and that's hard to accept, I guess. But does that make any sense? You don't have to accept it, the unacceptance, but yeah.
Embracing is even harder than accepting. So I can start with
accepting.
accepting.
And I was afraid to shock you with that one, but I thought I just put it out there, and you don't have to accept it or embrace it.
Thank you.
It seems to me that it kind of lines up with something that I talk about often within the metaphysics teaching, which is within the Bible when it says all things work for the good, that like if you really embrace that you're saying, it's saying the same thing, that if you can embrace all things work for good, then if you're looking at like a Hitler type example and can still say, all right, let's start looking for the good, that's kind of what you're talking about, that you're expecting it to work out in its own way.
Looking for the good and looking for the bad, and changing our internal dialogue about the good and the bad, and seeing that everything is God, everything is good, in the higher good, beyond dualistic ways of looking at good and bad. So it's about changing our internal dialogue, which I'll talk about later.
Right.
Yeah. So you're right. Always look for always look for the good. But it's about always looking for the bad. Anyway, we'll get to that. If we don't answer that question, let me know.
So you're going to get into the how to do some of this, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a big part of the talk. Does everybody see that if we live in this third dimensional reality of resistance, of anger, fear, resentment, worry, frustration, that it's not going to be very pretty, because those vibrations attract worse vibrations, and then we attract worse, and we see more challenging things in our world, and that's just going to be a vicious cycle to create what we're getting, what we may see if we continue on this cycle. Does that make sense? Yeah, because that's really important, because
Mitch, just a question.
Yeah.
Should we just kind of give you a thumbs up when you ask us if it makes sense, so that it's making sense to us, to give you like a, we got it?
Okay, yeah, that'd be good.
I mean,
yeah.
that way
Well,
you have some feedback from us about whether it's making sense to us or not.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. If you and if you don't do anything, I'll assume it's making sense. If you do this, then I'll just let me know, and definitely address that. So so what I'm talking about is, not just a pipe dream of living infinite dimensional reality. Its implications actually go beyond life and death, because the implications create suffering, and creating suffering is worse than life or death. Death is an easy thing it's a passive kind of thing. We just die and we think we're through with it, but we're not through with it, because we have some lessons to learn in this world. And if we haven't learned it in this reality, then we resist it by, my teacher says that all death is suicide, and because we create our reality, and we create our death, and we buy into this illusion of life and death, and we buy into this illusion of having to die at 80, 90 years old or whatever. But all these lessons that we haven't learned, we're going to have to learn eventually, and the lessons will be harder. So yeah, it's the way, it's so important to catch these concepts, because it could make the difference between living in heaven or living in hell. And that's worse than life or death decision. So it's all about creating this inner peace within the outer world, because our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. And if we have chaotic emotions, then guess what's going to happen in our outer world? So we're, as within, so without, and as Jesus said. So this is a very transitional time in humanity, in our consciousness, in our evolution, and what we do over the next few years will determine what happens to our world, and we have to make changes. Not everybody, but some of us. You guys are probably doing the right things, I'm sure, but some of us aren't, and so it's going to be it's a hugely transformational time, and the world may be very different in a few years, and what happens is so dependent, and that's why we have to take this so freaking seriously. It's more seriously than anything else, I believe. So yeah, just say no if you don't agree, or good.
Can you repeat your last statement? Sorry, you said take something seriously. I missed that.
Yeah, so taking this more seriously than anything else in our life is my takeaway from this whole thing, because if we don't, we're gonna wind up with a hell, actually.
Okay.
But if we do take it seriously and we live in that fifth dimensional kind of mind frame, then everything will be heaven on earth. So yeah, I think what I'm saying is is so vitally important to me anyway. It may not be to you, but the weather may be more important to other people, but to me this is more important than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you think that the next few years are going to be so transformational?
I see the trajectory of the way things are going, and I see that things are speeding up in a challenging way to a lot of people who are living in like Texas or other countries, and because it's it's when things happen to other people, it's like the knock on the door saying, wake up. If you don't wake up, this may happen to you, and learn all these lessons that these other people should have learned, because if you do learn them, then it may not come, to your street. But if you don't pay attention and think that it's just happening over there, I'm safe over here in my house, then if we don't learn those lessons from those other people when it's easy, when we're here on this graph, then the challenges are going to be a lot harder. and we'll be up here, and wouldn't have used our skills, and we'll be stuck, in anxiety, and then anxiety is going to create a more anxious, challenging world. Yep. Okay. Good. So how do we stay on that line? How do we stay on that the zone? So yeah, that's a question that you guys had, and actually, I guess the simple answer is miracles. But we can't just wait for miracles to happen. We have to create our own miracles. And of course, the miracle says miracle is a change in perception, and because the underlying principle is that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world, and we can't find inner peace, we can't find outer peace until we find inner peace. And as Einstein said, the world is an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. And Schrodinger says the world is a gallery of mirrors. So based on all those, everything in quantum physics, I don't know if you guys have been exposed to some of those concepts before about the world being an illusion, and hall of mirrors and all those kind of things. Are you familiar with those kind of concepts, or? Okay, good. So I created my own allegory based on quantum physicists, based on spiritual teachers, based on religion, and my allegory. Some of you probably heard it before, but essentially, we're sitting in front of a hall of mirrors. So this is us over here, and we're sitting in front of a hall of mirrors over here, and we see all these reflections in these mirrors, and we respond to them, and some of them may not look so pretty, and we try to put smiley faces on these frowning faces, and some of them are actually beginning to look like Frankenstein monsters, and we keep trying to put smiley faces by having the perfect relationship, having a lot of money, having a nice house, these kind of things, to put smiley faces on these Frankenstein monsters. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to be working, because behind us is a lens. So there's a lens behind us, and that lens has a lot of distortions on it. And behind that lens is a light, and that light represents the light of God. So there's a light, and there's a lens over here in front of the light, and then there's us in front of the lens, and in front of everything is this hall of mirrors. So this lens has distortions on it, and instead of seeing what's happening in our hall of mirrors as invitation to clean up our lens, we try to change these reflections in our hall of mirrors. So all these distortions are created whenever we're out of alignment with God, whenever we are on a place of unconditional love, whenever we're in a third dimensional kind of consciousness. That creates distortions on our lens. And the more we resist these Frankenstein monsters and saying, oh my God, they're my victimizers, protect me, help me, God, these kind of things, instead of seeing that as an invitation to heal these distortions on our lens, we instead try to keep trying to change these reflections in the hall of mirrors. And for some reason, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work because we forget about this lens behind us that has all these distortions on it. So once we heal all the distortions by being in this fifth dimensional consciousness, then there are no distortions on the lens, and the light of God directly shines on our hall of mirrors, and we experience heaven on earth in the fifth dimensional consciousness. Does that all make sense? Good, because that's good. And I guess you agree. If you don't agree with it, just let me know. So the important thing is how do we relate these concepts to staying in the eye of the hurricane? So essentially there's a hurricane brewing around us, and we need to navigate to the eye of the hurricane to be in this peaceful place. And in this peaceful place, we'll experience heaven on earth. And if we aren't in this peaceful place, we'll get caught up in this craziness of the world. And so it's about, I'll talk more in detail. So we're going to do a book study after this, if enough people are interested, and we'll talk a lot more in detail about how to navigate to this and staying in the center of the eye of the hurricane. And staying in this fifth dimensional consciousness, but we'll do as much as we can now. So the important thing is to realize that we made an agreement with the people around us, and the agreement is to teach us certain lessons. And if we're a vibrational match for the people around us, then we'll keep these people in our reality. So the Celestine Prophecy is an example of how, we have to stay in that fifth dimensional frequency, because if we don't, we vibrate at that. If we vibrate at that third dimensional frequency, it could be pretty dangerous. So my experience of this was when I did Vipassana. I did a 10-day meditation retreat where we sat for 11 hours a day. And I had excruciating pain because we weren't supposed to move at all. We were just supposed to sit, and just sitting with excruciating pain, without any distractions, without being able to move, without being able to take any medications, isn't the most pleasant way to spend a vacation. But I did it like my life depended on it, and that was my greatest teacher. All these things that came up about my pain, about my resistance to it. The more I resisted it, the more intense it became, and the more I surrendered to it, the more peaceful it became. So I did all these mental acrobatics around it. I dissociated from it. I saw myself on the ceiling, looking down at it, and that was helpful. And the pain was a lot better. But I realized that there's a bigger lesson here that I need to learn. So I brought it back, and I went back into my body, and projected my pain across the room, and that got rid of it as well. But I thought, oh, there's more lessons here I need to learn. So I brought it back, and then I realized that being in a place of equanimity, of no cravings for comfort, no aversion to the pain, really helped me to really experience the pain as just a sensation. And that was pretty peaceful. But then I did further meditation where I just merged with the pain, and there was no separation between me and the pain. I just loved it unconditionally, and that brought about a huge sense of energy. I felt totally energetic, and then I got to this place where I had no thoughts. I used the pain as biofeedback to show me whether I had any thoughts or not, because we're supposed to, there's this anapana part of, it's called anapana, where we just focus on the philtrum under our nose, and just focus on the breath going in and out of that area, noticing the colder breath going on the inhalation, warmer breath going in the exhalation. But instead of that, I got even deeper. I went into the center of the center of the center of the center of the philtrum. And in that place, there were no thoughts at all. There was just absolute bliss, and it was bliss beyond imagination. And in that total bliss, I felt like I was going to have a seizure, and because there was so much energy that I thought I was going to explode, and I felt like I was going to scream, and I had to bring back thoughts in order to ground myself. But so that's how we could use our challenges as teachers, because my pain, is a metaphor for all the challenges we have around us, and we could be in the center of the hurricane, be in the fifth dimensional frequency, by changing our perception of it, by being in the fifth dimensional kind of mind frame of having no thoughts. And in that fifth dimensional frequency, there's no pain, there's just bliss. And so instead of experiencing what's going on around us, where there's pain, where there's all these challenges around us, we could shift into this fifth dimensional reality where there's total bliss beyond imagination. And there are no words for that experience. It was that state of bliss. It's, yeah, I don't even want to try. So does that make sense about how to make that shift? And that's just my way of doing it. One experience I had, but it could be used as a metaphor for all these other things that you may face. And we're going to get into other examples later, but that's just a mind-blowing experience I had that thankfully blew away my mind, because I had no thoughts, and in that place it was just bliss. So yeah, so and I guess people with multiple personalities could be seen in the same way, because like one personality could have a horrible allergy to peanuts, and the other personality doesn't. And when they're in this personality that doesn't have any allergy to these peanuts, they forget about this other way of being in the world. So that frequency of reality doesn't exist for them, and they exist without this peanut allergy. So it's about changing our perception, changing our whole way of being, our whole mindset, shifting. That's the miracle, is that change in perception. Of course, the Miracles talks, because that other personality has a very different mindset as that personality has the kiwi fruit allergy. Make sense? Okay, good. So conversely, if people had a fear or resistance and had was attached to this fearful kind of place, they go into the third dimensional reality, and they attract all these challenges around them. So it's all about vibration. Just remembering that it's all about seeing what vibration you want to attract into your world, and vibrating at the highest frequency possible. And that's why I eat raw food, is because raw food is the highest vibrational food that I know of. It doesn't cook out the vibration of the food, and it keeps me vibrating as high as possible. So that's my reason for that. And so it's about food. It's about being in the right environment, and being around nature, but it doesn't always depend on that, because we could shift our perception around being in the middle of downtown New York City, and being in a state of bliss as well. But it helps us to navigate this area here, so that we could be ready with our other skills to be challenged even more. So yeah, it's a journey on that line. So it's about so it's really important to have no attachments to the outcome. So yeah, a lot of people think that visualizations and affirmations are the way to go, and prayer is the way to go. And sometimes it is, and it works for a lot of people. But it's only the case if we do it the right way. So affirmations, visualizations, prayer could work very effectively if we aren't attached to the outcome. So we're going to talk more about that later, pretty soon. But having an attachment to the outcome lowers our vibration, because we may not always see what we expect to see, and that lowers our vibration. So let's talk about this thing that we call the zone. So the zone is a place where passion, excitement, and determination meet equanimity. So it's about being excited and being determined and having a lot of passion, but having equanimity. And equanimity essentially means letting go of the outcome. Does that make sense so far? So it's intense, single-minded, and absolute immersion in the present moment. It's utterly being absorbed in an activity, and that activity itself is intrinsically rewarding, and other needs are negligible. And the motivation is positively energized and aligned with the activity that you're doing, resulting in a timeless state of flow. So let's, as we go along, maybe you could think of a time when you were there. Could you come up with times when you were there in that zone, in that state of flow. So for me, it was the Vipassana experience, having that anapana, cycling in nature, making love, you know, those kind of things are places that a lot of people could, or some people could be in the zone. There's no trying, it's just effortless movement without thinking. And it's accompanied by an absolute state of bliss and this complete loss of separate self and a subjective experience of timelessness. So could everybody relate to that?
Yeah, I'm a mediator, and when I get into the zone in mediation, time stops and I don't realize how long it is, and it just flows naturally. And when that happens, it's not bliss as I would normally describe it, but it is the zone.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And you're able to be much more effective in that place, right? And if you were thinking about what you were doing, it wouldn't be as effective. You feel like you're connected to a higher self or a higher part of you somehow when you're in that zone.
Well, that's a case where all the skills are being used. But I've been a mediator for so long, I don't have to think about them; they just happen.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, good. Anybody else relate to that?
Yeah, I can. Hang on. I'll put my video on as well. That I was eating. I always think of it as if you're a sports person and you're kicking a football or something. If you think, oh damn, I didn't do that very well, you know, you're going to slow things down for yourself. Whereas if you, oh well, never let it go and keep playing. And it's the same for me as a musician. If I make a mistake and start thinking about what might have, you know, that I didn't do something as well as I should have, then I'm out of that zone of being in there and in the moment and performing well. So that's kind of how I would describe it.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And you have a certain feeling, a certain sense of oneness with all of reality, of one with God, peace, tranquility, timelessness. You have that sense of all those kind of things.
I don't have time for that when I'm performing, but the whole performance is like that. But yeah, I don't have time to observe that at that point, I suppose I'd say.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, that's great. Everybody else? Could everybody else relate to this? For some people, you know, for some people who aren't virgins, making love is probably the closest to unless being in that flow, being in with somebody we love, or being in a good seminar with Wally, good talk, and gets you out of the mind and into the zone. And so there are a lot of ways to get in there. So you could all pretty much relate to that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it for myself, like when I create lesson plans and posters and all of that I get, it really is a place of no thinking. You're just doing and being a part of something. And it's just this amazing flow, but you're not really thinking. I mean, it's just happening through you. And that's that sense I get, that there's something happening through me.
Yeah, totally. And it's a matter of using that feeling and taking that with us as we have more challenges that creep up in our life, and using more and more of our skills as those challenges creep up. So once you know what that feeling is, you know when you're not having that feeling, and you could use your skills to get you back to that feeling. So yeah, that's really important to navigate that line by knowing what it feels to be on that line, and what it feels like not to be on that line, whether you're below the line in boredom, or or too much feeling too much relaxation, or too challenged, too worried. So I have something in my book that I don't know if you could see that.
What page?
It's page 195. So there's control, and there's arousal up here, and apathy down here, and boredom down here. So yeah, just you could go to that when you like. So how do we get there, and how do we stay there? Is that a question you guys have? Good. So one way. So there are a lot. I just came up with this list, and this isn't a definitive list, but this is a list that I came up with that is going to be totally evolving over the next several years. And but my list, I have a list of 5 things, and so number 1 is surrender. Number 2 is accepting, and actually going beyond accepting and embracing. The next one is laughter. Next one is having zero attachment to the outcome. And next one is redefining everything that shows up. So we're going to go into more of those all in more detail. So the first one is surrender. And one way to surrender is to live in the present moment. That's easy to say, but, sometimes harder to do. And, when we're not living in the present moment, we could use our emotions to help to navigate us to being more present. So that's where our negative emotions could turn into positive emotions to help to use it as biofeedback to keep us in the present moment. I'm not going to go into too much of that because a lot of other people go into that in a lot more detail. But the next one is a lot more interesting, and to realize that surrender is due to a need to control. So the more we need to control, the less we surrender, and control is all due to fear. So it's all based in fear. The more we fear, the more we need to feel like we need to control, and less surrendered we are. So let's do an example. Like let's give an example of a fear. Just I'm sure there are things you fear.
I have an example that I experienced yesterday. I don't know if I hadn't
Just a
thought
brief,
about it.
just like 2-minute, just like just a brief synopsis of the fear.
It'll
just,
be brief.
Fear
It will be
of
very brief.
lack of money, fear of lack of, something like that.
This was like lack of control was mine. So
okay, but the lack of control comes up from a fear of something. So what's the fear that's
the fear was my day not going the way I wanted it to.
Okay, so yeah.
I mean, I had planned my day a certain way, and it was all of a sudden going in a very different way. And then I was walking down the stairs of my house, and I was going, wow, maybe you could be willing to let go of this, because this is not going to this is not going to, I mean, I saw it was making me anxious. And so I thought, well, do I want to be anxious? So it was a matter of changing my mind and being okay with where things were and not having that need to control.
Okay, great, good. So let's do more dramatic kind of fears. So one fear that some people have is fear that the world is going to be chaotic, and we're going to be victims of a cruel world. Does anybody have that kind of fear? No. Okay. What about fear of poverty? Does anybody have that fear?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So fear of poverty is a fear of death. Actually, it's a fear that if you don't have enough money, you won't be able to pay the rent. You won't have enough food, and you'll die. So it's all most fears come back down to a fear of death, and but all fears are based on not trusting God. And what does trusting God really mean? Like, yeah, everybody says, oh, just trust in God, or the universe has you by the back. What does that actually mean? No? Okay.
It would have to mean like complete surrender. You're completely surrendered to it's nothing in your control. It's in God's control, or not his control, but just it's in the control. It's outside of your control. Everything. So complete surrender. That's what it would mean to me.
To me,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
means-
that's great. And through that complete surrender, that lens has no distortions on it. And through having no distortions on it, we actually regain control by relinquishing control, which, the world is full of paradoxes. And this is another paradox, that when we let go of, when we surrender, God's light shines directly onto our hollow mirrors, and we embrace the totality of what we are. So yeah, trusting in God means essentially trusting this whole process, trusting physics to and everything we know about physics and spirituality to be there, because that's pretty much the nature of reality, to that everything is a reflection of a vibration. So trusting God essentially means trusting this whole process to not make us the exception to the rule, because that's the way that's the rule for everybody else. But sometimes we think we're special, and the world is out to get us, and then we fear things, and we resist, and that causes us to be in a negative vibration, and we create all these Frankenstein monsters, and it doesn't look very pretty, and then we blame God when it's us to blame. Does that make sense? Because everybody says, trust in God, but so it's important to really understand what that means, and because once we do, then it's easier to trust in God, because the laws of the universe are pretty much God. So that's my understanding of it right now. I may change this understanding, 2 minutes from now. So if you guys have any questions, or that bring up questions in my mind about whether I'm right about this or not, then feel free. I'm totally open to this latest understanding of the way the universe works and God works, but which could be completely wrong.
Well, I like the part about I'm not an exception to the rule. I mean, if you think about that, that's pretty much the heart of it. I'm not an exception to the universal rules.
Yeah. But sometimes we think we're so special, and we create that kind of reality. So yeah, well, good. So as long as that makes sense. So it's not about surrendering, and we have to take baby steps. Like, we can't just jump off of a cliff and expecting to knit a parachute on the way down. We have to take the baby steps. So the baby steps I take are I know this isn't legal, but I used to keep my seatbelt unbuckled because but I've gotten too many tickets, so I buckle it now. But I used to keep it unbuckled. I have no health insurance, and just trusting that I'm not going to get into an accident, that I'm not going to have needs for health insurance, and because I think I hate to this is my reality. This is my way of looking at it. I'm not saying that this is the way you need to look at it. So just use very cautious about that, because this isn't for everybody, and just I have health insurance because I feel like I need to take care of my health, instead of relying on and creating that paradigm in which, and this whole possible reality by going into this fear of saying, I need to have insurance, I need to buckle my belt, and having that, even though it's not conscious, it's a subconscious kind of belief that's in the background that may attract a reality that vibrates with that frequency. So if I do buckle my belt, it's not about fear, it's about just going along with everybody else, and just playing along with the game. So other baby steps I took were, I had a bike ride. I was on a bike ride from New York to Florida. I got into a bike accident. A car ran into me. And, I could have gone into a state of fear saying, oh my God, I'm not going to get back on my bike. But the next day I got right back on my bike and pedaled away. And just coming here without having my medical license, without having a job, just trusting the universe. And these are, progressively bigger steps, but it's about, everybody has a different set of steps. And some people, take smaller baby steps, like, maybe going out without listening to the weather forecast, going out without an umbrella. It's your own pace. You just decide what kind of steps are appropriate for you. Everybody's steps are different. Good. So if there are no questions, so go on to the number 2, accepting and welcoming, actually. It's a really good story about this farmer who had a son and had a horse, and his horse was his whole life. He used his horse for so many things, and he used it for getting around the farm, and it was his whole life. And then one day the horse ran away. And all the villagers came to him and said, oh my God, what are you going to do? Your horse ran away. That's your whole life. And the farmer said, good thing or bad thing, too early to tell. And he just brushed it off. And the next day, the horse came back with 5 wild horses. And the villagers said, oh my God, this is so fantastic. Now you have 6 horses. Oh, you're so lucky. And the farmer said, good thing or bad thing, too early to tell. And the next day, his son got on the horse, this wild horse, and the horse threw him and he broke his leg. And the villagers said, oh my God, your son's leg is broken. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? He helped you around the farm. And the villagers and the farmer said, good thing or bad thing, too early to tell. It's, we think we know God's plan, but God's plan is really was to help his son avoid, oh, I'm sorry, I left out the last part. So the next day, these soldiers came in and we're recruiting people to the military to fight in this battle. And because his son broke his leg, he didn't have to serve in the military. So the villagers came and said, a good thing, a bad thing. They said it's a horrible thing, and the farmer said, good thing, a bad thing, too early to tell. God's plan was to save his son, and we go along with the ups and downs, all this roller coaster emotions. If he would have been on this roller coaster that these villagers would tell him to go along with, he would have been on this roller coaster of emotions, and that roller coaster of emotions wasn't God's plan, and God's plan was to rescue his son. And we think we know what's right for everybody, but we really don't. We don't know God's plan, and we don't see the whole perspective on everything. So if he would have had fear, resentment, anger at God, things may have happened differently, because his frequency may have vibrated a very low frequency, and maybe things would have turned out reflecting that lower vibration. So once we accept and welcome everything that's happening, then we change our vibration. And this is a way to stay in equanimity, by seeing everything as a good thing, a bad thing, too early to tell. And too many people are quick to judge anything that happens, and we go, oh, this is bad, this is good, and we're taught, we have to have a judgment, we have to have an opinion about everything, and but opinions could get us into trouble, especially if we're attached to our opinions. And we'll go into that later. That makes everybody okay with that? Good. So it's all about welcoming challenges and seeing the perfection in everything, and knowing that God, God, meaning our the vibration, will attract that similar vibration, and staying at that right vibration to of equanimity at least, but even higher vibration would be even better. And I have a table of those energy levels in my book. I'm not going to go into that. So the next step is so the next number is laughter, and that was going to be the essence of my talk. But there's so many more levels of this that are so important. But laughter, so laughter, the different versions of laughter. There are so many things we could laugh at. We could laugh at somebody slipping over a banana peel in a bar. We could laugh at at ethnic jokes. We could or we could laugh at this funny illusion we play on ourselves, because this whole a gallery of mirrors is just a funny game we're playing on ourselves, because we essentially create all these reflections in this mirror, and we have all these resistances, all these traumas and dramas we play in our mind about it, yet we're creating it, and we forget to laugh at how funny it is that we're creating all these traumas and dramas. And if we look outside of us and see how funny it is to for somebody outside of this reality, it's pretty funny. So it's pretty much this laughter is grounded in the truth, and this truth is based in quantum physics, that we create this reality, that we create all these traumas and dramas in our life, so it's a laughter that comes as a result, as a byproduct of grounding ourselves in that reality that's beyond the matrix, that's beyond time and space, beyond our thoughts, beyond this third dimensional reality that most people are living in. So does that make sense about where that laughter comes from? Okay, good. So that laughter gets us to the place beyond thoughts. So a lot of spiritual teachings, a lot of religions are about judging ourselves for not doing the right thing, and it's about focusing on doing the right thing. All these things are bad, all these things are good, and that just keeps us in this paradigm, this dualistic way of looking at reality that keeps us in the mind, and we can't get outside of the mind by being a product of our thoughts. So the mind can't think its way out of the mind by its way of thinking, by its thought process. So unless it's worked for you guys, but it hasn't worked for me so far. So, but laughter gets us out of the mind. It creates this mindless state that a lot of monks, Buddhist monks who have meditated for 30, 40 years, according to Lee Burke, who's a researcher, he found that Buddhist monks who meditated for 30 to 40 years have the same brainwave frequency, this gamma frequency, as people who laugh. So it gets us to that place beyond thought, to this place of beyond the matrix, and that's where the fifth dimensional reality begins. So it gets us beyond the 3D way of looking at the world of spooky creatures in our mirror to this, to laughing at them, to seeing how we created them and seeing how funny it is that we keep playing this game expecting different results. So Lao Tzu said, and this is a big thing in my book, as soon as you have, so the thoughts are what creates, so A Course in Miracles says that every thought we have creates a part of the world that we see. And so it's about seeing how our thoughts are creating different parts of the world. And we do that by laughing at our thoughts. and laughing our way out of the matrix by laughing at our thoughts that are creating the matrix. So Lao Tzu says, as soon as you have made a thought, laugh at it. Which takes a lot of practice, and I still haven't mastered that yet, but I'm still working on it. But if you could do that, you could forget everything else in the talk. But if you haven't mastered that yet, so hang on. So it's all about seeing the sense of humor of God. It's like, God, seeing God with this farmer and the villagers, and seeing how funny it must have looked to God, because God was trying to help this help the son and not be drafted, and help the farmer. And it must have looked funny to God about how these villagers were responding to it, but the farmer knew that God, if I stay in this vibration of knowing that whether it's good or bad is too early to tell, then he gets to laugh at the whole situation, because the whole situation was funny, the way the villagers responded to it, if you see the humor in it. It's, it may not be everybody's sense of humor, but it's not what you hear on late night comedy, but I don't know, I think it's funny, but guys may not, and that's fine. So if it's somewhat funny, raise your thumb. Okay, good.
I would say it's ironic.
Yeah, and ironies are that's I talk about ironies and in my book a lot, and the problem with most people is we suffer from irony deficiency. We don't see these ironies, and and that's the way out of it. It can't be cured by a doctor. It has to be cured by a paradox. So sorry about the puns, but I can't help myself sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, once you see the ironies around you all the time, more and more, I'm seeing those ironies, and I have a whole section in my book about those ironies. And once you see them, and on that's God's sense of humor, is these ironies. So yeah, that's perfect that you saw the irony in it. That's the sense of humor that we're looking for as you go through your day. And that's what I help people with hypnosis to do. I do a version of hypnosis called laughnosis, which helps people see the funny way they were looking at the world until now, and helps them laugh at that version of reality that they saw, to laugh their way out of that trauma and drama and all these negative emotions that they may have, to laugh their way out of the matrix. So it's a version that works on the subconscious mind to help to program their subconscious mind to laugh their way out of the matrix. Good. So the next one is attachment, and Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. wrote a book on the 5 attachments, but I did my own version of it. It's a little bit based on his version, but very, very slightly, maybe a third, maybe a fraction of it is from his stuff, but most of it I developed to suit my own needs. And so there are 5 levels of detachment. So the first level is 0 attachment to the outcome. So it's about watching a game and watching the whole political situation, and out of a state of amusement, not caring, not caring, not even having any preferences about who wins or loses, and just from a place of, oh, this is exciting kind of game that people are playing, and it's amusing, and just might as well use it as a form of excitement. So 0 attachment to the outcome in that level. And that's pretty much what we're looking for. The next level is having a preference without attachment to the outcome. So that's rooting for one party, rooting for one team, but how you feel emotionally about it doesn't matter because you're not attached to the outcome at all. The next level, number 3, is preference with attachment. So you have a preference and you're also attached to the outcome. So you root for a certain political party, a certain team, and it does affect you emotionally whether that team wins or loses. Next level, of level 4, is identity. So your whole identity, you're committed to that team, and your whole identity revolves around that, whether that team wins or loses, and your whole self-worth is determined by what happens with that team or with that political party. And the next level, 5, is fanaticism. And that's when the person who's on the opposing team, or anybody who is cheering for that opposing team or political party, is your enemy, and you're willing to die or kill to make your team or your political party right, and the other political party or other team wrong. Do you sort of identify with any specific one of those levels in terms of politics or in terms of different things that are coming up for you? Could you relate to? Yeah, good. So by doing that, by giving over attachment to the outcome, you're essentially giving that other political party, that other team, that other person remote control to your emotions, to remote control to your vibration, and it controls what you attract into your life. So it's really important to see what you're doing and see the consequences of your vibration on how you're interpreting what's going on, and watching your internal dialogue as it pertains to what's going on with what's happening with this political party, with whatever this other person's doing, this other ex-spouse, whatever, seeing what it's doing to you. And if it's lowering your vibration in any way, if you have any resentment, any fear, any anxiety, then it's a good opportunity to change the internal dialogue. And we'll talk about that in a little while. And I work with people to help them change the internal dialogue with hypnosis. But the internal dialogue is everything, because everything has dual purpose. It could help lower our vibration, or it could help to raise our vibration. So if we use it for positive intention, then all that charge, everything has a charge to it, and the charge is determined by it's the way we interpret it. If we interpret it in a negative way, that's what'll happen. If we interpret, so everything relates to how we interpret those neutral situations that don't seem that neutral when they're happening.
Can I just say, I think they're a bit hard on the politics, because I stood as a candidate last time and I wasn't particularly attached to the outcome, because I actually stood as a candidate in order to inform people, not to win. So there's kind of different ways of approaching it, I guess.
Yeah. So information is fantastic, and Jesus said, "This truth will set us free," and I'm a total believer in that. Yeah. So it's 2:30. It's an hour and a half. Supposed to go for an hour and a half. So, any questions or?
No, for me, I think that, I don't have any specific questions, but I certainly have lots to think about.
Yeah. There is a lot to think about. My book helps, gets into it in more detail, and I help people embody all this with hypnosis sessions, and So yeah, so I hope, you know, the book should answer a lot of questions for you. It gets into a lot more detail, but yeah, but it's a journey, and I have a lot more questions as well, you know, but the questions are fun questions now. It's about how to interpret this in a different way, and you know, so it gets to be a game.
Where can we find your book?
That's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's called, yeah, it's called this is it, the Holiest Medicine.
Okay, thank you.
And it's only like, I don't know, $4 on Kindle or something. So it's dirt cheap. And I spent 15 years writing it with
wow.
10 different major rewrites. I was up like, sometimes I was up like 20 hours a day, just focused on it, not even thinking about food. And it was just like a passion. I felt like I was possessed by this.
You were in the zone. You lost track of time and you were wrapped up in the gift of the writing.
I don't feel like I could have written that book if I wasn't in the zone. I wouldn't feel like I did it justice. So yeah, I felt like I needed to be in the zone before sitting down at my computer. So I did a lot of meditation, a lot of you know, watching comedies, reading comedy material before sitting down and writing. Wanted to be in the zone because it's more about the energy from the book than the actual words that I think that are so important, if that makes any sense. There's a certain vibration to the book, I think, that I gave to it that goes beyond the words. Because it's just words on paper, it's just meaningless if you just like use it as mental candy. But it goes beyond the words.
There's some good humor, particularly in chapter 10. Was
Thank
it
you. Yeah.
10, I think. 10. But I haven't got to chapter 12. The guy in the grey jersey, Unity in Greensboro, hello, asked about Hitler. That's your chapter 12, which I haven't read yet. But from being, as being a daughter of parents that were in London during the war, Second World War, my mother used to talk about the tremendous sense of comradeship that occurred with all the people. And it's like two different things were happening at the same time. Some people, particularly in Europe, you know, were dying and starving, and all of those things were happening. And people in London were being killed and bombed. And my father, for example, had to go around and decide which kids they could give morphine to after a school was bombed. And which ones were going to die so they didn't bother. You know, horrendous things like that. And then on the other hand, other people were having a completely different experience. And it's almost like humans had to learn through that positive side of it. Because also when people were evacuated in England to countryside, the children were evacuated to the countryside, then the rich parents saw how some of the very poor people lived. And that changed things in England. So they landed up with a government that was much more prepared to help the poor people. So while we think of the death and destruction, we tend to, around war, forget that there's the positive things that happen. I don't know about now and what's happening in Yemen and places like that. It sounds horrendous, but I'm just saying what my mum experienced over that time, even though she was in a house where there were bombs. They had these flying bombs with no pilots in, and the bombs were coming over, and then the motor would stop, and then there'd be a pause before bang, it would go down and bomb and kill people. And mum grew up as a teenager like that. So, but she can still talk about the positive way that everybody was. So there you go. There's my little lecture. Sorry about that, Mitch.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all
it's
about.
like it was meant to be to take humans further, is what I possibly think in the spiritual development.
Yeah, it takes us further into this fifth dimensional reality. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would say that on a global level, it's the same thing that we experience on a personal level, that we keep repeating the same thing over and over again until we have an aha, or pulling on energy at a higher level that takes us beyond that. So, I mean, we look at all the wars we've had, it's like, you know, what are we learning? Are we learning anything from all these wars that we keep having? And hopefully we are. I also believe that there's an
Well,
evolutionary
yeah,
aspect,
yeah.
so that
Um,
it may look the same, but there's always, at least in my own personal life, so I have to assume it is at the global, that even though I may look like I'm repeating the same pattern over and over, I'm really not stepping into the water in the same place. So it may look just a little bit I mean, not much different, but it is different. And it's usually, I mean, I can see it as progress.
yeah, that progress is the different way that we see stepping into that puddle, and the different way we interpret everything. And yeah, so that makes the whole difference. And learning from other people as much as possible. Just because things are happening on the other side of the world doesn't mean that we are, we're okay. We have to learn everything we can and step into the puddle differently based on, that's a knock on the door that we're getting from these other people, listening to other people's experiences with stepping into puddles, and learning as much as possible from other people instead of getting banged on the head with by that messenger that's giving us this message that we need to learn. Yeah.
I have to have something concrete to sort things out with. And so Deepak Chopra had this program where he boiled it down to like no regrets, no anticipation, no resistance, just in the moment. And I can add to that now after your discussion, good or bad, too early to tell. And so it kind of fits right in with that whole, I can, like you were talking about coming down the steps saying, do I want to get aggravated about this? When I get to there, I'm going, is this anticipation? Is this regrets? What is this?
Yeah, but it goes beyond regret. It goes into welcoming everything that's happening that we, our first instinct is to go into regret, but it's having a different interpretation that allows us to welcome it.
Right.
That
Exactly.
I talked about briefly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, well, that was what I was talking about when I was going
it's
down
all
the
about
stairs.
vibration. So yeah, having no regret is a higher vibration than having resistance, but having total acceptance and welcoming is even a higher vibration. So it's about making the most of everything that's going on to raise our vibration. It's all about vibration.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna thank you. And yeah, I think this has been very enlightening, and everyone should know Mitch is willing to teach more of a full-on book study of the book if people want to do it, and we can make the space available here with the Unity in Greensboro Zoom, and find a day and time that works, knowing that Mitch is and some other people in here are 18 hours ahead of us, so we're working with very different time zones.
Yeah. So what day would Friday or Saturday this time work for you guys?
My guess is you're going to have a hard time finding people here that's going to want to do a study on a Friday or Saturday night. We don't tend to have a lot of turnout for that, but there may be a group.
Friday may work because this time actually may this time may be good. So if this time
Wednesday night works for us
works,
just because we're used to it.
Okay, yeah. So this may be the best time actually. So yeah.
For me on Friday, Friday doesn't work for me because I look after my 4-year-old grandson who would be a little bit noisy.